Today is March 31st, 2021, and exactly 5 years ago today, I had surgery for median arcuate ligament syndrome at the University of Chicago. So I am making this video because back when I was going through this experience of having MALS, I scoured YouTube looking for anybody who was going through what I was, and at the time, there was nothing. My hope is that if you're watching this video, this could potentially help you or somebody you know with similar symptoms get diagnosed, or if you already have been diagnosed with MALS, I hope that this video helps you feel a little more seen. So first, I'm going to touch on what is MALS. So MALS is short for median arcuate ligament syndrome, and that is when the median arcuate ligament squeezes too tightly on your celiac artery, causing stomach pain. Some of the symptoms are pain right here, right around your celiac artery, and especially increased pain after eating food or laying down. Nausea, vomiting, and it is an incredibly rare condition, but it mostly impacts young women and especially girls and women of a smaller build. Growing up, I was somebody who always had stomach issues, and I vividly remember these issues starting when I was in 3rd grade. And I just remember from then on, I just regularly had stomach issues. I had stomach pain all the time, a lot of nausea, but that was really it. However, then in my junior year of high school, in the fall, is when I started realizing that my stomach pain was becoming more frequent and more painful. And I started feeling pain here around the celiac artery and also in my lower stomach constantly. So this takes us on to the process of trying to get diagnosed. You may not know that trying to get diagnosed is one of the most difficult parts of having MALS because it is such a rare condition that most doctors have never heard of it. So during that time in my junior year, I started going to a bunch of different doctors trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and I ended up going to the ER multiple times. They didn't know what was wrong, and then I ended up going to an ultrasound tech, and her name was Carol at Ramblewood here in Lansing, Michigan. So I just want to give a huge shout out to Carol, because if it was not for her, I don't know when I could have gotten diagnosed. But anyway, I went to Carol for just a stomach ultrasound, and she did this really interesting thing where after she was done examining my lower stomach, she said, "I'm just gonna check this artery real quick." And my mom and I instantly thought that was really weird that she would talk about this artery. And I just remember when she did that ultrasound there, it hurt really bad. She called my physician to let them know that I did have this rare condition, and I was the first person in my doctor's office to ever have this condition. Now I'm going to cover what it's like trying to find a spot to have surgery. So with MALS, there's really no cure for it except if you get the MALS surgery. And the thing is that only about 10 or 12 hospitals in the entire country do the surgery. So it's incredibly rare, it's incredibly difficult to find a hospital that will even do it. And then if you do find one you like, the waiting time can be incredibly long. I first looked at the University of Michigan because that was the hospital closest to me that offered the surgery, and I met with the surgeon there, and I really liked her, and my parents and I decided that we wanted to go through with the surgery there. However, we ended up getting a call from her letting us know that she was going to refer us to the University of Chicago because that's where she trained, and they had an entire team there that would be able to do the surgery, which was understandable. However, it was incredibly frustrating because at this point it had already been months since I had been diagnosed, and I was in constant pain and just wanted to get surgery so badly. I also met with the Cleveland Clinic because they're another hospital that does the MALS surgery, And I don't know what other people's experiences with the Cleveland Clinic are, but I had some of the worst medical experiences of my life visiting there. I'm not gonna name any other doctors in this video except for Dr. Crow at the Cleveland Clinic. If you are watching Dr. Crow, I hope you were able to learn from your mistakes. He tried telling me that I didn't even have MALS, completely refused to examine me. He just sat in the corner and bragged to my mom and I about the articles that he's published. But after that, our trust with Cleveland Clinic was completely gone, and we decided we needed to look elsewhere. After the surgeon at U of M referred us to University of Chicago, we got on the waiting list there. And with Chicago, they require you to come do a consultation with the surgeon, and they require you to also do a psychiatric exam as well. So this was probably in December or January. I finally got to go to Chicago for my consultation. I met with the surgeon there. My surgeon was Dr. Grace Mack. She was amazing, and they made me feel like I was believed, and they also made me feel like they could help me. I did also have the psychiatric evaluation. I basically had to talk about the impacts that having MALS had on my mental health. So I passed the psychiatric exam, and Chicago decided that they would do the surgery on me. So my surgery was then scheduled for March 31st. So at the time of my surgery, that was about 7 months that I had had in constant stomach pain. So I addressed some of the physical symptoms that I was having, but now I wanted to talk about some of the psychological effects that having this chronic illness had on me. I would say that the effects of those have been more persistent on me than even the physical symptoms were. I was a junior in high school when I was going through this process, and junior year in the United States is known for being the most difficult year of school academically. Going through this and being in constant pain during such a crucial year was not easy. I started off missing so many days of school for being in pain and going to doctor's appointments that my guidance counselor actually said to me and my parents that I was going to risk having to repeat junior year again. But I knew for myself I did not want that. So I started working harder than I ever had before. I became fantastic at time management. Any time that I was feeling remotely okay to do schoolwork, I worked constantly. My grades actually ended up improving during this time because I completely threw myself into my academics to try to distract myself from the constant pain that I was in. But that did not make it easy, and there were still many days at school where I ended up having to leave early, or if I didn't leave early, I would text my mom, like, I feel so nauseous, I wanna go home. It was really hard to try to just be a student and focus on my academics when I was dealing with that. Another thing is that having these health issues really affected me socially, and it impacted a lot of the relationships in my life. During this time, I lost a lot of the friends that I had in high school just because I didn't have the energy to put time into the friendships like I would normally if I was feeling healthy. I also felt incredibly alienated and isolated from my peers. And I remember something that I echoed a lot was that I just wanted to be normal, and I wanted to feel like a normal teenager. I have this piece of writing that I wrote from around this time in my life. I no longer feel like I'm a student of my school. Instead, I feel like I'm gazing at the other students from the outside looking in. So that just kind of shows that I just felt so abnormal from everybody else. And I didn't tell anybody about what I was going through except for my couple closest friends. So none of my classmates had any idea why I was missing so much school or what was going on with me, just mainly because I chose not to tell anybody at the time. I didn't want to burden anybody with the health issues I was experiencing. now going into the actual surgery, I had no concept of what a surgery feels like. And I remember that before I went to the hospital, I packed all my school stuff, and I was in AP US History that year, and I packed my giant APUSH textbook because I was planning on doing homework as I was recovering from surgery. So this is me advising you that you will not be okay to do homework while you're in the hospital. So I had my surgery on March 31st, and when I woke up from surgery, the first thing I remember saying is, ow, my shoulders. I had extremely bad shoulder pain during my time in the hospital, and that's because they kind of pump your stomach full of air so that they're able to look at everything better. And my surgery was laparoscopic, by the way. That's how University of Chicago does theirs. Other hospitals do the open cut surgery, but I personally really wanted the laparoscopic one. Also, I was in the hospital for 6 days, which apparently about a week is pretty standard. So some of the things to know about the surgery, trying to move in the days following, that was my biggest struggle, was just how badly my shoulders hurt. I just felt such a heaviness that I didn't want to get up from my bed, and I just remember sobbing just as they were trying to make me move from the bed to the chair next to my bed. In addition, I did have the epidural, which is like the giant shot in my back to help me with pain. My experiences with that were fine. I didn't really feel it. Another thing is I did have a catheter because for the first few days you're not able to get up to use the bathroom. Unfortunately, my catheter was not working right, so I felt like I had to pee at all times because of that. So that was not pleasant. However, I think I was just an unlucky case. As far as other symptoms in the hospital, I really didn't have much stomach pain because of the medication. I did have some nausea, but I am incredibly grateful to Dr. Grace Mack and Dr. Skelly for doing my surgery. I'm also so grateful to the hospital nurses for taking care of me 24 hours a day. After seeing all the gross things that they had to do for me, I'm just so appreciative of them. I really don't think that they get enough thanks. In the hospital, I was really lucky that the Ronald McDonald House let my parents stay nearby, so I had either my mom or my dad with me at all times in the hospital room, which was greatly appreciated because I was really scared. So finally on the 6th day, I was well enough to go home, which was awesome. And I think I took an extra, it was 1 more week off, just resting at home before I went back to school. So I had a total of 2 weeks off from school for surgery. I also want to address something that I encountered a lot during my time of getting diagnosed, which I've done a lot of research on since then, and I've learned it is a very common issue, which is sexism in the medical field. During my time trying to get diagnosed, I experienced sexism from multiple doctors on multiple occasions. I had a doctor tell me that my pain was in my head and that it was due to stress from schoolwork. And he also told me I should find a hobby and that would make my pain go away. There was also Dr. Crow at Cleveland Clinic who didn't believe my pain because I was a 16-year-old girl, and he just made me feel like my feelings and my own experiences of pain were invalid. If you're a girl going through this process or any other process of trying to get diagnosed in the medical field, please, please, please advocate for yourself because nobody else is going to do it for you. You know what you're experiencing better than anybody else, and please do not let any doctor try to discount that, and please do not give up. I cannot express that enough because that is going to be one of the things trying to stand in your way, but you deserve the treatment that you deserve. I also just want to give a huge shout out to my parents, especially my mom, because if there was anybody who experienced a similar amount of emotional toll as I did in this process, it was definitely her. She put her full time and energy in those months trying to help me find doctors, find a way to get surgery. There is nobody who stressed about it more than she did, and I'm just so thankful that she was there to help me advocate for myself. I also just want to kind of acknowledge some of the positives that came out of this experience. It's not that I would ever wish this experience on myself again or on anybody else, but there were a few small things that actually came out of this experience. I feel like I've never been the same way again, and I've always been much more understanding of others after this experience. I also feel like it taught me a lot about gratitude and being grateful for what I have, because there is nothing more important in life than good health, and I now recognize that, and every day that I feel healthy, I'm so immensely grateful for that, and I don't take it for granted anymore. There were a lot of times in this process where I felt just really alone, and I just felt really frustrated with the situation I was in. But I remember there was one day I was getting testing done. There was a guy there who my mom and I were chatting with, and we learned that he was battling lung cancer for a second time. And just hearing him talk about his struggles just really put my health issues into perspective. And although, yes, I was in chronic pain for months, I'm so lucky that I have not had to deal with that for years, and that it's not something life-threatening either. So it just really placed my health issues into perspective. Another thing that came out of this was that it shifted my career path as well. For a long time, I thought I was going to pursue acting in college and professionally, but once I returned back to normal life from getting surgery, I realized that standing on a stage was no longer an option, because I was still and am still now dealing with a lot of dizziness issues. So during that time, one of the things that I used to distract myself from the pain was by researching my main passion in life, which is theater. And I threw myself into researching Broadway creatives that I looked up to and listening to new cast albums, and my knowledge of the theater industry grew more than it ever has before, and it helped me realize that I would still be content having a career on the professional side of theater instead, and that my knowledge of theater is actually one of my biggest strengths that I have now, and I don't think I would have found that if it was not for this very unconventional way of finding it through distracting myself from my chronic pain. I cannot express enough how much having this surgery has changed my life. My quality of life has improved tremendously since then, and I'm now 5 years out, as I said, and I just would not at all be where I'm at in life if I had not been able to have that surgery. I don't think there's any way I could have gone off to college like I did. There's no way I could be going off to grad school like I am next year, and I definitely wouldn't have had all of the experiences I've had in college, making friends and being involved in so many things, if I had been in that constant pain still. So just thank you so much to the University of Chicago team for helping me feel better and for helping me resume to a pretty normal life again. I wanted to end this video by again reading a little snippet of this writing piece that I did from that time, just because I think it sums up a lot of the lessons that I learned. So I learned that health should always come before anything else. I learned that doctors are not always the heroes we make them out to be. I learned that both normal and boring are blessings. I learned which people will stand with me in my hardest times. I learned that I should put things into perspective and that there are always people fighting much harder battles. But most importantly, I learned that I am much, much stronger than I thought I was before this experience. So I think that concludes my MALS experience video. Again, if you have any questions at all, I will gladly give you any knowledge and experience that I have related to this topic. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I hope you maybe learned something new.